Hello again, everyone, and welcome to another edition of the Fantasy Slant, powered by Pro Football Focus. I'm your usual host, Michael Moore, along with our usual co-hosts, the tripod, as we like to call ourselves, Brandon, Marianne Lee, and Mike Tagliere. On this edition, at long last, we get to talk about some preseason action, several stories to cover. Sammie Coates, is he really that bad? Derrick Henry, is he really that good? And you get the idea. But first, the question of the day, folks, is with the preseason eventually leading into the regular season, of course, there's going to be a lot less TV time for all of us. So my question to you, and Brandon, you can go first, which TV show are you going to have to sacrifice this NFL season? And by sacrifice, I mean wait till the end of the season and or just DVR it and watch it at a later time. Go.
This is so funny. I just threatened to divorce my husband over this. This is really exciting.
Okay.
Wow.
We're getting
not
real.
really,
Okay.
but I made it clear that like some people call Netflix cheating, and he has decided to go on a binging rampage because I've been working so much.
Oh,
so
no.
he's now on Mr. Robot, Orange is the New Black. He watched all of
Right.
House of Cards and Stranger Things
Right.
in the last like 2 months. I was like, well, what do we get to watch together now?
Wait, so you haven't seen any of those?
No.
Oh, Brain. Okay, well that's
I know,
on you.
I've lost. I know. I'm
I was
bad.
gonna say if there was like one or two of those, that's fine. All of them, that's no.
Well,
Like,
I
you're
just
gonna
said,
need-
take a chill pill, pump the brakes here. He's like, oh no, I'm enjoying summer. I was like, what? Are you in school? What's wrong with you? And seriously,
Look.
he's like using summer as like this binge watching extravaganza.
As we all know, for non-fantasy football experts such as ourselves, there is a summer. We just don't have it.
I know,
Okay.
supposedly. I've heard about it.
Right.
Whatever. But I bought him. To be fair, what happened is I bought him wireless headphones so that he can watch TV while I'm working. I live in New York City,
See?
so
Perfect.
my den is my living room is everything. So now it's his favorite thing. He just walks around the house with these headphones on in his own
So you
space
enabled
watching
him.
these shows. I've
You
enabled
enabled him.
So it's
That's-
my fault. But
Truly.
so pretty much everything. I'll be doing nothing.
Fair enough. Okay.
Yeah.
All right, Mike. What TV show are you sacrificing in the name of football this year?
Well, it's funny because I was speaking in New York, Brandon. I was just out there. I got to see Brandon in
Hello.
person again. She stopped by right before she actually went on air for her Sirius show. We were able to see her talk for a minute. But when I was out there, I went to the bookstore because I was like, I'm going to want to read something on the plane back. And so I bought the book Friday Night Lights. And I've been trying to read a lot more recently, but now with the season coming up, it's going to be less and less. But my plan is to read that book and get into that show because I've never seen the Friday Night Lights show. I've heard great things about it. But honestly, when it comes to TV shows that I'm probably going to sacrifice, it's watching Office reruns because right now I'm on this Office like rewatching spree where my wife and I we've already gone through I think 7 seasons like in the past like month. So it's just like before bed we'll always put it on. So right now there's nothing on TV that's like got me like totally jacked to watch. It used to be Dexter, but I don't do Game of Thrones or anything like that. So
You should. You should, Mike.
I'm pretty boring in season, to be honest. I'm just always working. So not really sacrificing much. I guess I'd prefer doing football stuff, but yeah, it'd be Office reruns. So.
See, folks, everyone listening, Mike sacrifices. Well, he sacrifices nothing for you. He was going to do this anyway. So
Yeah.
So, all right, I'm going to cheat a little bit because this show is almost done. But have either of you heard of The Night Of on HBO?
No.
I have, but I haven't seen it. I'm actually
Ooh.
getting HBO to see the what is it? The football one where
Or nothing?
Jared Goff
Oh,
doesn't
Hard Knocks.
know.
Oh,
Hard Knocks, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So I am going to watch that because of my job.
Right.
I heard about Jared
Right.
Goff, but
It's a
yeah,
tax write-off. I get it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Jared Goff doesn't know about the sun, whether it rises in the east or the west.
he's a
Yes,
little
but
pony.
in fairness, they did correct that. The sun does not rise. The Earth rotates around the sun.
Oh, come on.
I'm just
He's a
if you're
deep
gonna
thinker.
get
You were wrong.
You're a
if you're
truther.
gonna
aren't
get
you?
technical on it, I'm just saying the sun does not rise. Anyway, no. So Brandon, once you do get HBO, I strongly suggest that. Very good, very suspenseful, but it is a little not graphic, but it's got some blood. So if anyone listening, if that's not your thing, don't watch it, please. But if it is, then it's great. So, but anyway, but it's also ending in 2 weeks, so it will be over before the regular season. So that's why I said it's kind of cheating because it's going to be over anyway.
Yeah.
Anyway, regardless of that, let's get to the business at hand, folks. Finally, we had some preseason action that we can all dissect way too much, and we are going to, I assure you. First up, probably, I would say, maybe the story of Week 1, the Dallas Cowboys, and specifically Dak Prescott, who turned in quite the performance, Brandon, didn't he? There you go. Okay.
Clapping right there. I'm going, yeah. You know what? I don't need him to be the number one. I just need him to be fine if and when Tony Romo has to be out.
Don't you dare say when. Don't you dare.
Well, hold on. I think that's the important point here. So he went 10 of 12, 139 yards, 2 touchdowns, 1 to Dez Bryant, by the way, which we'll come back to in a second. But Brandon, I completely agree with you. This was more about could the Dallas offense keep running if Tony Romo went down. And Mike, I'm not going to say when because I want to be an optimist here. But look, it's more probable than other quarterbacks that Tony Romo gets hurt at some point. So it's nice to have somebody not named Kellen Moore throwing it to Dez Bryant, right? I mean, you could at least agree with that part.
You guys are on crack. I'm looking at it, going back to 2006, okay? There's been just 2 seasons where Romo has missed more than 2 games. 2010.
Yes, but he wasn't as old as he is now.
Yeah.
Oh, come on. Get out of here. Tony Romo's going to be fine. He's one of the top 10 quarterbacks of all time. Get over it.
2 years before Peyton Manning fell off the fantasy cliff, he broke all the records. It happens quick.
Tony Romo's going to break all the records.
All right.
Whoa.
Okay. I'm totally kidding. That's not happening. There's not enough volume.
Hot take.
All right, let's get back to something a tad more reasonable. So Dez Bryant, his final line, again, nothing spectacular because it's preseason, but 2 of 28 for a touchdown. Originally, fun fact, wasn't going to play, but talked his way onto the field because he needed to see game action. So Brandon, I know you wanted to cover this specifically. This just confirms what we all knew about Dez Bryant, which he's still an elite wide receiver 1. Yes?
Yes.
Okay.
And the 3 years prior to last year's disaster zone, which we can just totally block out of our mind for all the Dallas Cowboys. He went over 1,200 yards every single season and over 12 touchdowns every single season for 3 years in a row. I believe that he will get over 1,000 yards and the double-digit touchdowns. It looked great. And you know what? Dez kind of gets a bad rap. I actually love his passion and his emotion. I love that he talked himself onto the field. I think that the old, gritty, fun to watch Dez Bryant is back, and I'm all into it, and I'm so glad that Dak Prescott is not Brandon Weeden, Kellen Moore. There were a lot of issues there. So I just felt like even if the worst case scenario happens, which, yes, I'll take the and out, but let's say if something happens to our man Tony Romo, who I like as well, dad bod and all, I just think that Dak Prescott will be fine, and that is an improvement.
It is.
Yeah,
so
Prescott.
Mike,
Prescott, he looked poised. Like I'm not going to sit here and say that he's a lock for the backup job, like that he's like great, but he looked really.
I'm probably going to say that, Mike. There's no one else there.
Well, they talked about a trade for McDonald. They did talk about it, so I'm not going to rule that one out completely. But the thing that was crazy about him is that he actually spread the ball around a ton. Like he didn't over-target Dez Bryant. He didn't over-target Terrence Williams. He spread the ball around extremely well, and that's why he was going against a St. Louis defense that's their strong point. So he was playing against the first-team defense for the most part. So I liked what Prescott did. I was actually sitting there watching that game with Mike Clay, and he found it hilarious because I said, I can't wait till Twitter on Monday when we get back and people start saying, Dak Prescott needs to start over Tony Romo. And he's like, Mike, that's actually a really good point. And he went right to Twitter and said, Prescott over Romo, credit to Mike Tagliere. I was like, no, I didn't say that at all. But no,
own it, Mike. Own it, man.
The crazy part though about Dez, the crazy part, Brandon, you said it. What he's done statistically wise, he has topped 138 targets just once in his career. So he doesn't even rely on volume. He does it all without volume. He's been a top 6 wide receiver in each of those 3 years before 2015. Top 24 times. So Dez Bryant's going to be perfectly fine. Honestly, last year, I don't even think that Brandon Weeden was necessarily the issue with Dez. I just think that Dez was never back to 100%. He just had a bad year. Everybody's entitled to that year, and Dez Bryant had it. I'm just glad it's out of the way.
Well, yeah, and I think, it's a little column A, Mike, and a little column B. It was obviously the foot was not completely healed, and he was still dealing with that. But, the quarterback play was pretty bad, too. And one more note on Prescott, then we'll move on. But with Prescott, I remember when he got drafted, the issue wasn't the physical traits of Prescott. It was, oh, would he be ready in time, or would he be ready to play in the NFL? So it wasn't the athletic ability that they were doubting. It was just, hey, can he sort of catch up to the speed and all that? And look, he did. I mean, he was playing against the ones on defense. Now, that's not to say the Chargers defense is, spectacular, but it's a starting defense in the NFL, which means Prescott probably could do that in regular season against some teams. So it was encouraging, I think, to say the least. Let's just hope he keeps it up and doesn't throw a complete egg in week 2. Otherwise, all of us are abandoning ship on that take. So, but nonetheless, so let's get to another elite wide receiver, Brandon. Demaryius Thomas. There was concern all offseason that, with the quarterback play in Denver being extremely suspect, were we going to see the same Demaryius Thomas? But hey, he caught a 32-yard touchdown from Sanchez. So, I mean, obviously he's still going to get his, right?
I think so. I actually thought that Mark Sanchez, Trevor Siemian, and Paxton Lynch all looked competent in their own ways, and it's just about what style they decide to go with. Fortunately or unfortunately, I should say, Mark Sanchez is the only one of them that's ever thrown a pass in a regular season NFL game, but Trevor Siemian has a Super Bowl ring, so there's that. I will say that Demaryius Thomas had a down year with 1,300 yards, so wow, what a bummer for that guy. Really bad. The problem is that he had gone over 1,400 yards and 10 or more touchdowns in the 3 seasons prior, just like our guy Dez. But, both of them just kind of had a year that was a little funky, had some personal issues. Peyton Manning was a shell of his statistical self from the years prior. And he was still able to get 1,300 yards. So I feel fine. I felt like it was time for people to kind of go, oh, yeah. But he's still going in like the late second, third round, like low compared to all the other wide receiver ones. And I get it. They're not going to be great at quarterback. I agree. They were horrible at quarterback last year, and he still did it. Right. So, I mean, yes, 6 touchdowns, not what we want to see, but I still think he's going to get that number up, so I feel fine.
Mike, are you still taking DT in that late second, early third ADP?
No, I wouldn't.
Okay.
I've said before that I would take Carlos Hyde over him.
Okay.
I stand by that. Now, am I saying that Demaryius Thomas is a bad player? No, believe me, my timeline has been blown up by people telling me that I'm a Demaryius hater, and I'm not. I just think that Demaryius is a boring wide receiver too. That's it. I mean, you're getting what you want. It's kind of like he's almost that cash game option in season-long leagues where you would never want to play him in a GPP. You'd want to play him in cash because the guy's guaranteed volume. Last year, 169 targets, I think it was, that he got. He's not going to see that volume again, but he's still going to probably be in that 140 to 150 range simply because him and Emmanuel Sanders are that offense. They don't really have someone emerging at tight end. They don't have a number 3 wide receiver there. C.J. Anderson and I don't even know if it's Ronnie Hillman at this point. They were not very involved. Yeah, they weren't really involved in the passing game last year, which is kind of confusing. With Mark Sanchez coming to town, he targets tight ends a lot more than they did last year. Historically, Mark Sanchez targets his tight ends around 20% of the time. So you should see an uptick there. You should see the running backs a little bit more involved, especially if you're looking at Siemian starting or Paxton Lynch further in the year. But Demaryius Thomas is a guy that's in a lock for 140 targets as long as he's healthy. And so when you get those targets, you have to assume that he's going to be a top 20 wide receiver. The problem is that he lacks upside. It's going to be rare that Mark Sanchez throws 2 touchdowns in a single game, let alone 2 to Demaryius Thomas. So he's not going to win you any weeks. He's a boring option. I just did an article for PFF talking about Sammy Watkins versus Demaryius Thomas, and it's hilarious because some people are like, oh, this is an easy decision. It's Sammy Watkins. And then there's some other people on the other side that are like, oh, that's pretty simple. You go no risk and you go Demaryius. So it's actually a really good debate. Demaryius is going slightly higher than Sammy Watkins right now. But I think you take safe players in the first and second rounds. You don't want to lose your league with those picks. You're not going to win your league in those, but you can lose your league in the first 2 picks if you screw them up, but you can't win it. So in the 3rd, 4th round, that's when I'm looking to take a little risk on the guys that can be first rounders next year. And I don't think Demaryius Thomas is anywhere close to a first rounder next year.
Okay. Well, and I think his name's going to be a little inflated just because of the name and the reputation too. I mean, for better or worse, it's going to be a little amped up. So, all right. Well,
it's deflated because of the name and reputation. There's no way a guy who's had let's count last year, 1,300 or more yards for 4 seasons in a row, going in the 3rd round.
True.
when everyone's going wide receiver heavy.
Yeah.
That is incredible value.
Well,
boring or no. If yards are boring, I want to be bored every week. I want to be terrifyingly bored. And I do want to point out, though, we all talk about Dak Prescott. Paxton Lynch had one of the strongest first outings for a rookie in a preseason that we've seen in a long time. 6 of 7. He made a lot of really good decisions, 0 touchdowns, but also 0 interceptions. And I think that it's really important to kind of also focus on the fact that in great news, their quarterback situation, although not ideal, don't get me wrong, doesn't look heinous. Like, I'm not terrified to play, I think, anyone on this team. I think they're going to be at the same level.
Quarterback situation. So.
Holy mackerel.
It's worse. Yeah. Anyways, no. But Demaryius Thomas, think of it like this. Okay, people are throwing out last year, and I know, Brandon, you're saying that, last year, I'll take his last year, and the situation couldn't have gotten any worse. I disagree that it's potential that Mark Sanchez and Simeon are a downgrade from Brock Osweiler. But Demaryius Thomas finishing 13 last year as the number 13 wide receiver, first off, he was healthy the entire year. And then, healthy. He played every game. He got the volume, 169 targets. And on top, he's kind of like the Frank Gore of last year. Just because he finished number 13 didn't make him the 13th best wide receiver in my eyes. Like, if you own Demaryius Thomas...
But it was just the touchdowns.
But that's
the only bad stat was touchdowns. And if they can run the offense the way that they want to, the touchdowns go up. They couldn't run the offense the way they wanted to because Peyton Manning had the second most interceptions in the league in 7 games.
But that's the issue, is that I don't think the touchdowns go up. I think actually the running backs actually contribute a lot more. I think the tight ends are more involved. I don't think the touchdowns really can go up. I think Demaryius Thomas, the max for his touchdown total is 8. I think 6 is a likely scenario with Mark Sanchez as a quarterback. I'm not loving him at all. Like I said, I understand. I'm not hating on Demaryius Thomas, but I am because I think he's that guy that will get you 3rd place in your fantasy league. I don't think you're going to win a league with Demaryius Thomas as your number 1.
I think the floor is 8. That's what Macklin got last year, and he was on the Kansas City Chiefs.
Floor.
All right, I sense a bet coming that we'll hash out a little later. So you two start thinking about that. We'll circle back to this. But let's go to a receiver that we can all agree did not have a good night, Mr. Sammie Coates of the Pittsburgh Steelers. 4 targets, 18 yards, and 2 fumbles. Luckily, one of them was not lost, I guess you could say luckily. Brandon, we heard Sammie Coates' name all off season. He was going to be the next guy in line because Martavis Bryant suspended. You had Ladarius Green, who has his headaches now, and it seemed like the stars were aligning for Sammie Coates, but then he, drops an egg on this. So is this who Sammie Coates is, or do we give him another shot?
No, I mean, Sammie Coates says that he's never fumbled the ball, even back in Pop Warner ball. I don't know if that's technically correct, but I'll give it to him. Sure, fine. Still, the Steelers made a point of naming Marcus Wheaton the starter. They held him out like they held out a lot of other starters. They said there was an undisclosed injury, but really they said that about all the people that they were holding out. So nothing has really changed. As far as I'm concerned, Marcus Wheaton's been the starter the whole time. Sammie Coates was the guy with upside that we were hoping. But when the guy only caught 1 pass for 11 yards all season, it's a little hard to go all in. And it was cool when Sammie Coates was like in the 13th round, but right now he and Marcus Wheaton are virtually getting drafted in the same round. And that is bizarre. Like literally, Marcus Wheaton's at the end of the 9th and Sammie Coates is at the beginning of the 10th. Now, do I think that he has some potential? Sure, but he's not a deal anymore. He is definitely going up and up and up, and so I think he's better than last night, or not last night, but this week 1 for sure. But I just don't see any reason to believe that he's definitely going to be the starter and somehow break out like crazy. He had 2 catches for 61 yards and a touchdown in the postseason, which everyone remembers, but I'm not going all in. I have him on a lot of teams when he was in the 13th round. I'm not taking him at the same time as Marcus Wheaton.
Mike, do you agree?
Marcus Wheaton doesn't even know what his role on this team is right now. And they talked about keeping him in the slot, but I don't know if there's a way that they can make that happen. But and it's odd to me that he doesn't know his role, because you look at the other players, and Sammie Coates, I remember, and I don't have a short memory. Like, I remember things. So last preseason, I remember a lot of people trying to talk up Sammie Coates then. And then they were all surprised when Darius Hayward-Bay was the starter. And Darius Hayward-Bay actually performed in the offense. So I think Darius Hayward-Bay has a leg up on Sammie Coates. His week 1 performance in the preseason did not help his situation. Yeah, he caught 3 of 4 balls, but they were 6 yards per target. That's not what you want. He's supposed to be the field stretcher. He didn't look good. The fumble, the drop pass. Hayward-Bay actually dropped the pass as well. It was an ugly drop. It was classic DHB, but then he made up for it. He did catch a long touchdown. But Eli Rogers is the one that I think actually took a step forward. I'd been paying attention to the situation because there's so much cloudiness around the number 2 and 3 wide receivers in Pittsburgh, and they have value. So Eli Rogers has been talked up, saying last year they loved him last year, but the injury, it was a setback. He's looked really good. The problem, though, right, where I can't go overboard with Eli Rogers is because they're talking about Marcus Wheaton staying in the slot. So I think this really comes down to Darius Hayward-Bay and Sammie Coates. Unfortunately for you Sammie Coates truthers, I don't think it happens. I think he's a guy that you're going to draft on your fantasy team and you're going to drop him after 2 weeks when you realize he's barely seeing the field. Unless there's an injury, I just don't see Coates being that guy yet.
Yeah, I think we're all in sort of wait-and-see mode. I mean, don't get me wrong, it would have been the perfect story if Sammie Coates performed and you know, he sort of kept on that track that he's been on all offseason, but this definitely derailed it, for lack of a better term. So, all right, Brandon, so let's round out the first half of the episode. Vance McDonald, your boy, go.
Well, if you know anything about Chip Kelly, then you know something about Zach Ertz. And that's exactly what we're talking about here. He targeted Zach Ertz 111 times in 14 games last year. That's right. 111 in 14 games. And yet Vance McDonald is going virtually undrafted in almost every single fantasy league. Now, for those of you that are drafting one stud tight end and then you're done, fine. But for those of you that are getting a backup, I don't know why you wouldn't draft Vance McDonald, except for now he's done this preseason magic. Everyone's going to know about him. But I just tweeted out every time. I was like, about people started talking about Bruce Ellington, and I was like, why doesn't anyone listen to me? Like a GIF. And then the next one, I was like, and then Vance McDonald again. Why doesn't anyone listen to me? I was like, but it's hard when you're putting all your eggs in a San Francisco Chip Kelly basket. You know what I'm saying? Maybe there's a part of me that's a little nervous about that, but I'm not nervous about Vance McDonald. I do think that they will target him, and that quarterback situation is bad, so they need to do short passes and quick short passes, which is why I'm terrified for your friend Torrey Smith, not because of his talent or anything, but because they just can't get the ball down the field. I just have a hard time imagining passes that are going to go far enough to make Torrey Smith the guy we want him to be. So I think it's going to be a little dink and dunk, and it just is what it is. Not as bad as Miami, though.
Well, yeah, we'll get to that.
We can discuss how terrible they are, but definitely I'm all in, Vance. Hey.
And Mike, what's the stat? You have a very good stat on tight ends that see a certain number of targets and finish in a certain positional rank, right?
Yes, I do, and that magic number is 82. And basically, I did a study on tight ends, and if a tight end sees 82 targets, there's a 93% possibility he finishes a top 12 tight end. So when you look at Chip Kelly's offense and you look at the volume and you add in everything, and Brandon, I think the reason people aren't all in on Vance McDonald, I actually did a piece, instead of talking about each player individually, which it included Vance McDonald, included Bruce Ellington, Torrey Smith, Carlos Hyde, I did a fantasy goldmine or landmine 49ers piece for PFF. And in this piece, I talked about everything and why Chip Kelly he works magic and what he did with the Eagles back 3 years ago. I think people have forgotten about that. He walked into a situation where they were 29th in points per game, and he raised them all the way up to finishing, I think it was number 2 in 2013. Mm-hmm. So it was a quick turnaround. I think he could do the same thing. Now, I'm tired of people hating on my guy, Blaine Gabbert. I'm just kidding. He's not my guy. But I think he's going to be competent. I mean, yes, he had a rough start to the game. Unfortunately, I didn't get to watch a lot of the games this weekend. I was out of town. But I have watched little bits and pieces. But I did make it a point to watch Gabbert. He started out rough, but he looked like he got more comfortable as the game went on. What I was looking more for was he seeing ghosts? And no, it was just rushed passes, a little off. But the Vance McDonald touchdown, that was the thing of beauty. I mean, he hit him right in stride. There was nothing bad about it. He also used his legs. So Blaine Gabbert can create space using his legs too. People forget about that portion to his game, and he's not afraid to run the ball. So the 49ers as a whole, considering their ADP, and that includes Vance McDonald, and in deep leagues, grab Garrett Selleck as a little handcuff for Vance McDonald, because there's rumors that Garrett Selleck might be the lead tight end there. One of those guys is going to see a lot more volume than the other, and one of them is going to emerge as a top 15 tight end, because they may cap each other out a little bit. But I still, Vance McDonald, I think he's the superior talent, but Garrett Selleck's a name to keep on your radar too. But the 49ers as a whole, the price is why you have to love them all. The price. Yep. Carlos Hyde for a fourth. Torrey Smith is somewhere in the 8th round. I think he's moved all the way up to. Vance McDonald, he's late. So it's just there's reasons to like these guys. It's because of their value. Although Bruce Ellington is going too high for my taste now. He's gone from last round sleeper up until I've seen him go in the 9th round now.
It's all Brandon's fault.
No, it's Matt Harmon's fault. It's reception perception. Seriously, I was getting him in the 13th, 15th round, end of these huge drafts. Now it's you have to reach for him like he's Alan Hearns or something.
It was a joint effort. It was a joint effort by you two, Brandon.
Well, I'm not as famous. Let's put it that way.
Anyway. Right,
I know myself.
All right, we'll take a quick break, and when we come back, we will look at some updated running back battles from the preseason. All right, welcome back, everyone. We are going to get into some running back battles that hopefully provided some clarity after week 1 of the preseason, but let's face it, probably just made them a lot murkier. So first up, let's talk about Tennessee. You actually had 2 running backs that did pretty decently. I mean, both DeMarco Murray and Derrick Henry passed 70 yards, both had touchdowns. Mike, let's go to you first. Who remained, or well, not remains, who is the running back to own there for redraft leagues this season?
It's still DeMarco Murray, guys. DeMarco Murray, he went from the point when he first went to Tennessee that he was probably being overdrafted as a borderline RB1, and things have cooled off, and then they drafted Henry, and then all of a sudden he dropped into the RB3 conversation, and it was hate went a little bit too far, and I had friends, family members, people tweets to saying, oh, look at Derrick Henry, look how great he looks. I'm like, guys, he's doing what I thought he would in the preseason. I don't know what was surprising about Derrick Henry, his elusiveness that they talked about. He was a bruiser, and I seen it. He didn't have one-handed catches out there showing crazy athletic ability. No, he was a power runner. He broke a couple tackles. That's what I expected him to do. And I really don't think that Derrick Henry does much more than that. I think that DeMarco Murray is a better all-around running back, and I think that it's going to be like a 70-30 timeshare for me, with Derrick Henry only in there more so when Tennessee's winning games, and that's a problem in itself. Tennessee is not going to win very many games, guys. Their defense is still awful. DeMarco Murray is the guy who can catch passes out of the backfield, and that's why he's going to be on the field a lot more. I'm not buying the Derrick Henry hype, and if you own him in even a redraft or something like that, and you're able to trade him based on that game, I would do that because I don't think Derrick Henry finishes as a top 40 running back in 2016.
Brandon, what about you? Thoughts on Derrick Henry?
Yeah, I'm 100% with Mike on this. I think DeMarco Murray showed me he's still the stud muffin he was 2 years ago. And that last year he was part of the implosion in Philadelphia. It was him and everyone on the team. It was just a bad situation. So I saw zero reason for Tennessee to go with an unproven rookie based off of what I saw last night. Or I keep saying last week, I should say, preseason 1. So I'm with you. And I feel like Derrick Henry is someone who's going to be dropped by week 3. And maybe if you have DeMarco Murray, you pick him up for insurance. I'm cool with that. I think he'll get some playing time. I think he is the future. But is he this year? No.
Okay. Well, let's go to another running back situation, which may be a little murkier than the one in Tennessee, and that would be in Baltimore, where Terrence West has come out of nowhere the last week or two and topped that off with 2 touchdown runs over the weekend. So, Mike, let's go to you first. Justin Forsett sat out the game, obviously. Is he still the starter, or do we have to start worrying about Terrence West there?
Well, first off, we skipped over the whole Tennessee running battle thing, and without mentioning Bishop Sankey, which upsets me.
I'm sorry, I didn't know we went back in time, Mike.
I'll get over it. No, please, Tennessee, release him, please. But no, no. In regards to the Baltimore situation, Terrence West. Here's the thing: it was a joke. It really was a joke when he came there, but after watching the game, it's a real thing. They started him, guys. It wasn't just oh, we're gonna put Terrence West out there against the 2s and 3s and he's going to dominate. No, they started him and he looked really, really good. I don't think you could dismiss a guy's hard work. It's almost like a Thomas Rawls last year. He was undrafted. There were some truthers to him because he looked like he just ran angry. Terrence West, you cannot dismiss kind of what he did out there. He was running with a purpose. And I think Harbaugh's taking notice of that. Justin Forsett was the starter last year. He's a guy. he's a guy. He's not a difference maker. I know he's a decent pass blocker. He's a veteran. He's been there before. I think he gets the ceremonial first carry. So, yeah, he's the insto de facto starter. But this is a situation where I'm really just looking to avoid. Terrence West is a thing. You have Justin Forsett to worry about, I guess. You have to worry about Kenneth Dixon, who looked good in his own means. Buck Allen caught the ball out of the backfield well in the preseason. Again, they all do these odd things where I was having conversations this weekend talking about, is it possible they just cut Justin Forsett? Can we just do that? Like, please, can we make that happen? But apparently I'm the only one that thinks that's a possibility. I just think that Justin Forsett's a guy. He didn't do anything special for that offense last year. He had the chance. There's a reason they went out and drafted Buck Allen last year when they had Forsett in the roster already. There's a reason they tried to make a resurgence out of Trent Richardson. There's a reason they drafted Kenneth Dixon. They do not believe in Justin Forsett. They can't. They really just can't. So this situation I'd like to avoid. If you want to throw a dart at the end of your draft at Kenneth Dixon or Buck Allen because they're the cheapest, I guess. It's a situation I'm avoiding altogether.
Brandon, it sounds like you might believe in Forsett a little more than Mike does.
Yeah, a little more, but I have all of them on my draft day no-go list. So I have an article coming out tomorrow that's going to be basically people that I am not drafting. And my first rendition of this had Kenneth Dixon in it, and my second one has Justin Forsett. I feel like it's been a bit of a roller coaster. It was like, okay, they don't believe in Justin Forsett, and then they do believe in Justin Forsett, and then whoops, preseason happened and he was hurt, so these other people had good performances. What are they going to do about that? I just don't know how to feel at all. And again, I don't. The only starter they know about in Baltimore is Joe Flacco, and that's not a joke.
Right.
Literally,
yeah.
All the other positions are up for grabs. I hate that. And I'm sure, actually, I feel bad for Mark Trestman. I think this is a horrible situation for him to be in. Last year, everyone got hurt. Literally, everyone got hurt. And then this year, it's just this mishmash of Tier 2, Tier 3 players that they're going to have to kind of pick and choose from. I'm with you. I think the only person I'm drafting on this team is Kamar Aiken. And that's, only until he starts going too high again.
Well, that's the thing. I think you could dismiss the idea. So let's pretend that the Ravens were a John Fox-led offense. I think that there'd be more say in Justin Forsett getting this, the start and being the actual RB1 there. But I think Jim Harbaugh is similar to Pete Carroll in that way, or John Harbaugh. Similar to Carroll in that way, where they're going to let talent shine through. And I think he'd have no issue starting Terrence West if he earns that job. That's why I'm staying far and away. You couldn't pay me to draft Justin Forsett. If someone left him on the board as me for the number 40 running back, I'm still probably not taking him there.
Well, and I think, Mike, you bring up an excellent point, which is they're obviously not set in stone on that with Richardson coming in, with drafting Kenneth Dixon, with drafting Buck Allen last year, and even bringing in Terrence West. I mean, it's clear that Forsett's not the short-term or long-term answer there. And I'm with you. I would take the odds that he gets cut probably before the season. Because you got to remember, Baltimore is also perpetually cap-strapped. They have no cap room thanks to Mr. Joe Flacco. So, it may come down to, hey, who's the more expensive running back? Oh, Justin Forsett? Great, you're cut. Have a nice day.
Yeah, but the cap issue isn't as much now because they expanded the cap, and now all these other quarterbacks are getting paid more than Flacco. So they're actually getting more cap space than they did. I don't think he's going to get cut because I think they're all running scared from last year where everyone got hurt. Literally every single player. I haven't seen anything like it.
Yeah.
And Taliaferro is still going to get cut.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
He was somebody that we were excited about last year. He's going to get cut.
Yeah. So I think we all agree, just avoid at all costs. That's the bottom line with all that. All right, so another running back situation, which it's got an interesting rookie on it, the Denver Broncos. You've got C.J. Anderson. He's entrenched as the starter. There's no doubt about that. But you've got Devontae Booker, who's coming on strong and even pushing Ronnie Hillman to potentially actually be cut. So, Mike, is Devontae Booker, A, thing, and B, how much of a thing?
Well, it's funny because people have been trying to make Booker a thing for a while now, and I remember there was a play, it was, I think it might have been last week or 2 weeks ago, where Booker opened up their open practice. It was a scrimmage. he opened up with a long run for a touchdown. It was all over Twitter. All the Booker truthers came out, and they were celebrating, saying that, this was what's going to take him over. But if you follow Cecil Lammey, who is very, very close with the Broncos, he's there at like every practice. He actually tweeted out about an hour later saying that was literally the only thing that guy did all day. He was brutal. That's why he was out there with the third team. They had him stay after practice to work on something else that they weren't happy with. But I think that this whole thing about Ronnie Hillman and not even a sure thing to make the roster, I think this is more about how bad Ronnie Hillman is. Last year, Ronnie Hillman was a volume running back. There was no reason that he should have been getting more than C.J. Anderson, which worries me in the first place when
But he did.
Well, that's the thing. I know he did. And when C.J. so this year, when C.J. Anderson is on the board, and I'm sitting there debating between him and somebody else, like a Carlos Hyde, there's a reason I'm going with Carlos Hyde. Because C.J. Anderson, obviously has no job security there when they start Ronnie Hillman over him. And now that Booker is kind of slowly creeping up, it's something to monitor, but I don't think Booker is somebody that I feel the need to spend a draft pick on.
All right, Brandon, what about you? Is Devontae Booker a thing for you?
Well, I mean, I think that the Denver Broncos running back situation will be just as frustrating this year as it was last year. And for people that, didn't learn their lesson, they're going to go right back in, all in, and you do you. I guess that they're not going to be on my team, any of them. Because the Denver Broncos don't care. They are all about this hot hand garbage, and they're all about, security. And they're saying, oh, Ronnie Hillman may not make the roster. Oh, give me a break. You guys rode him like a pony. And you're going to do it again this year. I don't believe it for a second. I don't believe it for a second. Okay. Remember when they said the same thing about Monty Ball, and then he went off and was the number one running back for the team? Remember, he was not going to make the roster? That's the way of pumping someone up. Yeah, but no, remember that year he was a stud, though. I mean, the year that he wasn't supposed to make the roster, when he straight up was not re-signed, that's when he went away. But the year he wasn't going to make the roster was the year that he broke out. I'm not saying that I want Ronnie Hillman either, but I think where C.J. Anderson is going, based on the fact that Ronnie Hillman had more work, makes very little sense to me. And for some reason, just fantasy owners refuse to believe their eyes and their stats and their ears and everything, and they keep going with this guy. And I love C.J. Anderson's talent when it works out, but man.
Yeah, I think they're just betting on C.J. Anderson's talent. Because the guy is talented, you'd love to see him get the ball more. It's just the coaching staff hasn't changed. So there's really no reason to totally change, completely change the outlook for him. The only thing that I would say that he has going for him that would make you think they're going to use him more often is because he was supposed to be a Miami Dolphin. They offered him 4 years, $18 million, and the Broncos had to match. Nobody expected them to match considering how they used him last year. So honestly, if you're a C.J. Anderson believer, that's what I would go off of, saying they had to pay a lot of money to keep him. And Booker wasn't like a high draft pick, so that's what you can go off C.J. Anderson. It's just he does have some worry that goes into his ADP.
Sure. Well, a lot of people in the Broncos country, if you will, which is where I'm originally from, believe that was actually one of the weirder, more knee-jerk reactions that Elway had to losing Brock Osweiler. I think he got shocked and was like, well, we got to shore up the running game.
He should have celebrated. He should have celebrated the loss of Brock Osweiler.
Well, I mean, especially for what he got. I mean, that's going to be the craziest thing that's ever happened. But I think that was part of it, though. I think they had to shore up that running game. They knew that they were not high enough in the draft to get Ezekiel Elliott, and they could not have a rookie or really, really backup quarterback and a running back who had no idea what they were doing. They had to choose. Right. I think they chose that they had to keep a running back. So I think he will do the majority of the work, but again, they're just so fickle.
Well, and let's face it, that number that they paid him, it's not backbreaking. It's not going to strap it's not going to hamstring them in the cap. I mean, they did what they had to do. And like you said, Brandon, I tend to agree. They just needed some kind of veteran presence there just to show the fan base, hey, we're not completely throwing in the towel for this year. So, all right, one more, and then we will call it an episode. So the Seattle running back battle, if you will. So Thomas Rawls back in practice, but the coaches keep talking Kristen Michael. So Brandon, is this another case of coach speak that we should just let go in one ear and out the other?
Mike's going to have a really great response to this. I know it. My response is not going to be as great. I can't do this again. I feel like Christian Michael is just every year he and CJ Spiller just keep having to be talked about. And it just drives me nuts. Now, did he look great? Absolutely, which was horrible for all of us in fantasy, right? It was like, no, come on. I think, Thomas Rawls is coming back. Everyone is sitting there, giving this guy, a ton of BS because the guy was actually pretty good after contact. He had some really good stats there. I don't think they're going to ignore that. Marshawn Lynch had an unbelievable elusiveness rating from us. It's unbelievable what he would do over and over and over again. So those yards after contact is something that they really prize there. I don't think they're going to throw out the baby with the bathwater on that. I'm concerned that CJ Prosise is still injured. Again, he's on my no-go list. They have never done a two-back system, and they would need to practice that. And if he can't even get on the field, they're not going to do that. But do I think Christine Michael could be the handcuff? Yes, I do. I think he'll be relevant, but I think someone's going to take him way too early because we talk about him every year.
And you two know what the definition of insanity is, right?
I know.
Doing the
but
same
he did look better. I mean,
expecting
let's be real.
Different result.
I agree. But he did look better, and so I feel like I have to at least, give that up. But that's where it ends for me. Something's not right with him, right? I mean, every year we think he looks better, and he doesn't get the chance, and I'm baffled.
I'm sure there's some behind-the-scenes stuff that Pete Carroll and crew are very good at not letting out that we don't know yet. But anyway, Mike, your response.
Okay, so over the past few years, I've become a huge Pete Carroll fan. I didn't like him coming out of college, and usually when college coaches come to the NFL, I'm not a big fan of that. Like them, just like as big his name as Pete Carroll was, but I will tell you this: Pete Carroll has been nothing but honest with us ever since he came into the league. He's been nothing but honest to his players. It started with, and the reason I started respecting him more as a head coach, you saw that the Seahawks spent decent money to bring Matt Flynn in there. Then they drafted Russell Wilson. It was foregone conclusion that Matt Flynn was going to be the starter there. That was how things were. But then all of a sudden, you noticed through preseason, they started talking up this Russell Wilson kid. This guy's got a real chance to start if he shows it on the field. He did. He earned it. They never even gave Matt Flynn any time of day. It's something similar with Christine Michael. They never said anything good about him. They never did. They always said the kid needs to get his head on straight. They were honest with us. That's why I really have a hard time dismissing this at all. Thomas Rawls, I think there's a reason he's back on the field. I think he might have seen what's been going on, thinking he needs to get back on the field. Today was the first time he took snaps with the ones, so I'm curious to see how he bounces back, how things work, if he practices the next couple of days. But Christine Michael is a thing, and if Thomas Rawls doesn't perform, don't be shocked if Christine Michael is the new horse for the Seahawks. Now, CJ Prosise returned to practice today. He practiced for the first time since the beginning of training camp. He's going to have a role. It's going to be kind of like that Fred Jackson role from last year. I mean, he could be a plug. You can plug him in for a bye week start in your flex spot or something like that if you're tight at running back. But he's not going to be the workhorse right now. If you grab Thomas Rawls, I think it's a wise idea. It's one of the running backs that I would actually prefer to handcuff. Grab Thomas Rawls and then take Christine Michael with a late round pick. Unfortunately, he's going to start moving up draft boards, which is rough because we knew the talent was there all along. It's whether or not it clicked. And the Seahawks, if they told us anything over the last few years, it's that they're honest with us. So I can't give up on Christine Michael, and I know what you mean, Brandon. We've been here before. We've done this, but
so hard.
But the Seahawks coaches, they haven't lied to us, so I'm not going to really start to doubt them now.
Well, you know what? Godspeed to both of you. I'm jumping off that train. I've had enough. I can't do it anymore. He's hurt me too many times, and I'm not going to do it again. I'm done. So this is me starting over, and this is the new me without Chris and Michael. But anyway, that will do it for this episode. For Brandon, Marianne Lee, and Mike Tagliere, I'm Michael Moore, and we'll see you next time on the Fantasy Slant.